Shrinking is an American comedy drama television series created by Bill Lawrence, Jason Segel, and Brett Goldstein. The series stars Segel as a grieving therapist who desires to become more drastically involved in his patients' lives. Harrison Ford, Jessica Williams, Christa Miller, Michael Urie, Tennie, Lukita Maxwell, and Ted McGinley also star. The series would premiere on January 27, 2023 on Apple TV+, and was then renewed for a second season in March 2023. The second season would then premiere on October 16, 2024. The series has been renewed for a third season. For its second season, the series was recognized as one of the top 10 television programs of the year by the American Film Institute. A therapist, Jimmy Laird, dealing with the severe grief after his wife's death, begins to breach ethical barriers by telling his patients what he really thinks, resulting in massive changes to his and their lives. In June 2024, Ashley Nicole Black joined the second season as a writer and cast member in an undisclosed capacity. The season filmed from January to June of 2024. Ted McGinley, who had a recurring role in the first season, was promoted to a series regular for the second season. The show was pitched to Apple as a 3-season show, but the creators were open to continuing the story if it so required. Filming for the third season was begin in February of 2025. During a 2023 interview with Harrison Ford for The Hollywood Reporter, author James Hibbard reminded Ford that he had said in 2002 that he was content to work only once per year, and asked him why he had accepted an offer to play Dr. Paul Rhodes. Ford replied that he wanted to try new things after a period of not doing as much work as he wished during the COVID-19 pandemic, and his commitments to the titular role of the long-delayed Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. As with his role in 1923, Ford accepted the shrinking role despite there not being a script at the time, trusting that Segel, Goldstein, Lawrence, Brian Gallivan would deliver him a good script. When Goldstein and Segel created the series, they said they were looking for a Harrison Ford type. Goldstein then said, "Let's try and approach Harrison Ford," believing that he would turn down the role. In the end, Goldstein talked to Ford and sold him on the role. Goldstein still doesn't understand what he did to convince him, but he was elated nonetheless. Harrison Ford said of the role, "This mixture of comedy and pathos is really emotional stuff, and it gives you a sense of responsibility for the things you're communicating and how you're communicating." When Harrison Ford was approached for the series, the producers told him to watch Forgetting Sarah Marshall to familiarize himself with Jason Segel's work. After seeing it, Ford texted Bill Lawrence saying, "I'm in. By the way, good dick," referring to Segel's nude scene in the movie. Christa Miller, who plays Liz, actually tumbles rocks as a hobby. She is also the wife of co-creator Bill Lawrence. Miller also appears in Lawrence's previous series Scrubs, Clone High, and Cougar Town. Now, Shrinking was one of those shows that I went into with somewhat trepidation in the first season. I didn't really think I'd like it, yet it found a way to charm me, to make me laugh, and take an introspective look at myself and the way I deal with things. It was cleverly written, well acted, and of course also having a star like Harrison Ford add his name to the project, well, just lent a lot of credence to it. Unfortunately, Season 2 is not nearly as strong as Season 1. I kind of felt the show becomes sort of pointless, and also is just far too long. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of things to enjoy, and there are many moments that I really found myself laughing, or really having a good time. It's certainly not a grudge watch by any means, but I just felt eventually that the stories started to repeat themselves, and I started to disinvest in the characters, wondering, why do I actually care about what they're doing? Why do I care about if they're happy or sad, or if they're struggling? One of the things that I found in the first season that was always good is the show would always stop itself from becoming too schmaltzy. But unfortunately in this season, with a 12-episode run, it's just too long. There really wasn't a need for 12 episodes. And particularly by the last episode, you just kind of feel, alright, this season needs to come to an end. And the show oversteps the mark just one too many times, almost becoming sort of a lectury, schmaltzy look at these characters' ups and downs. As I said, eventually it just becomes pointless. Who really cares what happens to Jimmy? For a character in many ways who's his own worst enemy, and frankly a completely unorthodox, ineffective therapist who can be incredibly self-indulgent. Who cares what happens to Gabby, who's completely over the top and quite narcissistic at times? Never mind her friendship with Liz, played by Christa Miller, which just seems put on and frankly awkward. I mean, the amount of times these characters say "I love you" is just not realistic. They also live in this sort of perfect utopia where nothing is out of place and everybody looks like they're in a soap opera. I don't know, I just found it somewhat disappointing this time round. The one highlight for me, of course, was always Harrison Ford playing Paul. And don't get me wrong, he is still the standout in the show. He's mean, short-tempered, and always stops the situation from going too far. But in the last episode, unfortunately, Harrison Ford's character is now written to be more introspective and sad. And I don't know, the show just sort of loses its touch by doing that. Michael Urie as Brian is fine and well, he can make you laugh at times, but also can be completely over the top. And the addition now of writer Brett Goldstein, most famous of course for playing Roy Kent in Ted Lasso, is a very poor choice. Goldstein isn't a good enough actor for this role. He invokes no sympathy from you. At the end of the day, he is now responsible for, of course, murdering Jimmy's wife through drunk driving. And now the show decides to go down a narrative of trying to find sympathy for this man who is lost and depressed. But Goldstein doesn't have the range to bring this forth, and I feel the show really falls flat in this regard. It's one of those shows I really wanted to like. There are many times the show managed to charm me, make me smile, make me laugh, and take stock. Like I said, it's a well-made show with some excellent acting. But I just found this season became far too self-indulgent, far too repetitive, and there's an overemphasis that these characters really matter to me, but they don't. Their stories don't matter, and I'm not invested in who they are as people. Overall, Shrinking Season 2 is a massive disappointment. From a show that I thought was very clever, well written, pointed and sharp in Season 1, it is turned in now to an over-dramatized schmaltzy with bland characters living in their perfect world, pretending to be multi-layered and nuanced, when they just really aren't. Shrinking Season 2 gets a 6 out of 10.